Okay, welcome everybody back to our show. I am here with Monique Hill and I am Linda Melanson, and we are on the Awakened Being page, but you can also find this on Monique's page as well. And what was the name of your page again? Sorry.
Monique Hill, Intuitive Soul Savant on YouTube.
Yeah, that's a long name, so I'm probably going to ask that every single time. I never want to miss it and get it wrong. And today we are talking about motivation versus inspiration. And, we thought this was a really great topic because this is the beginning of the year. And, everybody gets so motivated at the beginning of the year because we're just at this brand new cycle. And there's like all these new goals and new ideas of what the new year brings ahead, and the new year also brings with it this like new energy. So there's always just this idea of wanting to stick to your New Year's goals and be motivated. But really, what is the difference between being motivated and being inspired, and how inspiration can really be a driving force behind motivation if we are doing it for a really great reason? So let's start.
Hi, thanks, Linda. Hi, everybody. Monique here. I'm speaking to you from the East Coast of Australia, and today happens to be a public holiday, Australia Invasion Day. So I would just like to honour the original traditional owners of the land that I live on and who are also my ancestors. And it looks like we'll be changing that date because the collective of Australia would really like to honour the traditional owners. So I just thought I'd add that in. Thanks, Linda. Did you ask me a question, or was I just introducing myself?
Well, introducing yourself, and if you wanted to start talking about the
okay,
topic.
Sure. So I've had a lot of time to reflect on this topic. And just for all of you out there, if you've felt that this year, 2023, you haven't had the big get up and go from the 1st of January that we usually get all that enthusiasm for our new year, you can blame that on the planets. We had Mercury retrograde, and we also had Mars, which contains the energy of our get up and go. Mars is the Lord of action, straight out of the mark. So that has been in retrograde, and now we have all the planets appearing to go forward. And I say appearing because no planets go retrograde, but we won't get backwards. They appear to look like they are going backwards from our perspective here on Earth, but we won't get into that today. So now is the time to get up and go with any plans. Anything that's been sitting there cooking in your mind, it's time. We've got 88 days ahead of us with the planets all full going ahead. So if you felt a bit stagnant, that's what it'll be. So in my reflections regarding motivation and inspiration, it's almost like there's a pre-awakened being, motivation, inspiration, and an after awakened being, motivation and inspiration. Now, I did a certificate 4 in life coaching 20 years ago, and in those circles, it's very much you make it happen, you get out there and you hit the pavement, you make it happen, you make the phone calls. If it's going to be, it's up to me. And the onus is very much put on ourselves to make life happen. And then after we awaken and we're connecting and embodying our soul, we're into the spiritual work, we're doing the deep healing. This all seemed to change very much so. And where I sit these days is not in the middle. I'm on the awakened being side. However, I'm walking in this new energy. I'm walking in the new inspiration, the new motivation. And, especially being 40 years astrology student, You know, I'm really coming to understand how much we push the river and how peaceful and more serene life would be if we didn't. And when I look back at my life, I had a very successful young life. I did so many different things, but I was striving as if somebody was chasing me. And I've now come to learn that that was a fear that was very deep within me of lack, of all things, that was motivating me, and low self-esteem. And now I've realized from healing from the lack and self-esteem and many other issues, that the striving, I just can't strive anymore. There's no striving left in me anymore. So when we start from that point, have you noticed that as well, Linda? A pre-awakened being, inspiration, motivation, as opposed to...
Yeah, well, I'm noticing that it's much, much harder to push myself to do things that inside are just not there. Like I have to be fully in it, mind, body, and spirit. Otherwise, it feels like I'm just trying to swim against the current. But one thing that I've noticed this year, as I'm talking to other awakened beings and healers, is that they're really just being open to what comes their way and what inspires them. So there's this, energy that comes in when something is really good for your path. It just lights you up and just gives you this almost like a burst of energy. And, it just seems so easy to step into the habits and the paths that come with motivation. And then they just kind of marry very nicely together, and self-care is a huge part of that, looking inwards and asking, what you need today to be able to have that inspiration be the driving force of your, actions and what you're doing. No matter what, we all have habits that we are keeping up, and that's part of the motivation part of it. And so it's really good to have those habits and do those things. And when we infuse it with this inspired thinking along with it, or allow space for something to come in, or little surprises or little miracles to be taking place, it just pushes us into that direction with so much more momentum. Such a beautiful experience.
Very much. What I hear is the flow, being in the flow of life rather than swimming upstream, swimming with the flow of life. And that is where we and the way that we want to live. We don't want all of this angst in our stomachs. But this is where our healing is very important. Because as we're stepping into our awakened being, our embodied soul, the patterns of our past are what are going to be the issues for us, because we will have all the intellectual knowledge of how to live, how to be in the flow, what's inspiration. We know our bodies, what I feel like doing and what I don't feel like doing, but it's up here. This is the issue, up here. Some of the listeners and our subscribers may identify if they had very militant parenting, and I was one of those. And I had parents that would start on you as soon as your eyes open. Right, get out of bed, up you get, come on. It was militant. It was like in the armed forces. And they had businesses. I had to work in businesses. So my whole, probably the first, and every child does things they don't want to do, but I really, it was dysfunctional, that sort of a parenting, where the children become workers, as soon as they can walk, so to speak. So that pattern, that mental patterning is what we need to overcome. because we are in the flow. We may be sitting and being within ourselves and being in the here now moment. However, if this head is going, you better get up, isn't there something you should be doing? Haven't you got a YouTube channel to build? Isn't there videos you can make? You should be writing that book now. This is where the conflict is, and this is where the healing needs to take place. Otherwise, there's this huge conflict within.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I was actually just speaking with a client about this morning, is about how when we are trying to, there's this misconception in the world about if you just listen to these motivational videos that tell you over and over while you're falling asleep that, you can change those limiting beliefs and you can change those. And maybe they may help draw towards you the healing, but the change really happens when we go back and we speak to those children inside of us, and we give them the nurturing and the love that they need, especially the hormone regulation that they need, because a lot of children live in a fight or flight hormone response because, parents are living there. And so it's really easy to put pressure on your children to get up, do your work, do this, do homework, do good in school, make everybody happy. There's a lot of demands on children. And when we can go back and hold that child tight, close to the heart, so that it helps to regulate the nervous system, it regulates your nervous system, and it pulls you out of living the fight and flight. The fight and flight states that we were programmed as children blocks us from the inspiration that we have access to in the now. And the more that we can go back and help that child, in those states, just like you were saying, don't you have a YouTube channel to build? Don't you have this to do? That is that child who thinks they're helping you do the right thing. But if you go to them and you say, but really, what did you need from your mom at that time or your dad at that time? And a lot of times it's a conversation, it's understanding, it's hugs and love, it's play. So it's, going back and nurturing those parts of yourself. And then when we are mostly aligned, I don't know if you ever become 100% aligned with all of those parts of you, it's really easy to tap into this inspiration or this inner peace feeling that can drive your actions to a place that is in harmony with all of your being. And that's mind, body, spirit connection.
Mm-hmm. And then that's your intuitive inspiration, which comes through, especially for big ideas. If you had no idea, sitting still will allow that intuitive inspiration to come to start something.
Absolutely.
And so the mind that is aware of the previous patterning from parenting or caregivers, from early caregiving, you can recognize that pattern, and as Linda shared beautifully, go to the inner child. It's okay, darling. No one's putting pressure on you. I mean, that's the self-talk that you can flip. It's okay. You just relax, darling. When I'm, this is sort of how I can get through it. It's not so, it's not even stressful anymore. I'm just aware of it. So there's this last grains, and I observed that. And because we were discussing this, I observed it even more. And by nature, I am a get up, go, let's make it happen person. That is my nature. And so living as an embodied soul is very, very different, counter to my original nature of get up and go. So something I became aware of in my 30s when I was a young mum is cleaning the house, because I was a single mum. And I used to think, and I was a very clean person, anyway, But some days I just didn't feel like the cleaning. You know, it was like, oh, I've got to do this, but I don't feel like doing it. Oh, I've got to do this, but I don't feel like doing it. And I noticed a day or 2 days after, I had this big burst of energy to clean the house.
Yeah.
And it was at that point in my 30s that I thought, we don't really have to do everything or anything at that point in time when we think we have to do it. The energy will come for what we have here, our intention. So we have an intention, a desire, the energy will come. And if the energy doesn't come, well, there's just, the energy's not there for it. And I think as we awaken, you know, the whole awakening journey is about understanding ourselves, I believe, and where we sit.
Absolutely. And this is something that I've discovered about inspiration, is if there was something that I was feeling that I couldn't get the energy to do, if I just did a 10-minute visualization of doing it, and the feelings that I would have when it was done, it just seemed like in a few days, it naturally, I'd be like, okay, I'm ready, and I got the energy and I know how to do it. And all of the overwhelm, or if it felt like it was like a mountain to overcome, was just gone. And that I would just be able to, one step at a time, do it without even really giving it another thought or feeling that mountain that things can feel like when we have, you know, a big thing to go through. And yeah, I think that's part of the inspiration, is just putting intention into, you know, what it is that you want to achieve, and just allowing the intention to carry you forward. I will say though, at some point, because when you've been on not doing for so long, that the first few times you do have to push through the mountain. If you've been not doing for so long, you have to push through the mountain. You have to do a little bit at least. And 9 times out of 10, once you start doing a little bit, all of a sudden it's really easy to do a little bit more. But if you just promise yourself, you know what, I'm pushing through this mountain right now, and I'm going to get this task done. And then all of a sudden you just do that task, you can go back and do nothing again. But you could also have an inspired energy burst from just pushing through that one task. And then you have so much more energy to just do more. But sometimes in pushing through that mountain, it's usually at the beginning of the day or the beginning of the task. And then once you do it a couple or a few days in a row, then it becomes easier, I should say. But that's just my experience with it. And that's after a lot of visualization, and then saying like, okay, I need to push past the mountain. I need to push past it and just get going. You know, we all have our depression moments. We all have those things that knock us down. We all have it. You're never going to get a life without it. That's not what we're here for. We're here to develop the tools to work with the problems or work with the challenges that we have. That's the learning, that's the mission. And how do we work through those things and still find a way to thrive in the world?
That's very true, very true. And that's right. If we've been sedentary for a long period of time, dark night of the soul, even my subscribers would identify with the dark night of the soul having a Pluto transit to Natal Sun, which you experienced years ago as well. And you literally cannot do anything. And that is the name of the game. The whole name of the game is to not use your energy or power and to just sit, to heal. Because, you know, something that I've observed in healing groups and what have you, it's in the stillness that the healing takes place. When we are addicted, and I'm going to say this because I've got people in my life that are addicted to doing. They cannot sit still. And so people, you know, we really have to look out there, you know, with a mature perspective And people, you know, who aren't awakened would look at this woman and say, oh, isn't she wonderful? She does so much. However, from my experience and my study and my work with traumatized adults is, no, actually, she's not well. Like, she's actually not well. She's moving like that because if she was to sit still, you know, all of this energy that is wanting to come out of her, which is actually pushing her into doing and keeping busy, you know, that energy is wanting to rise up in a different form. So I too, I agree. You know, there are times when we have to overcome this inertia, when it is time, not just because we look lazy to the world. You know, this is the awakening process, the being able to listen to the higher self as opposed to our previous patterning, or our mind, you could say. So in that case, there was a lot of fear that I had to overcome. You know, so we could be also other things that could motivate us that aren't healthy is the fog, fear, obligation, or guilt. You know, so what is motivating us? Once we've mastered the fog, and I will say master because we can master fear and we can master obligations to others and we can master the guilt. Yeah. That is possible. Once we've mastered the fog, you know, then we can actually discern what's healthy motivation and what's motivation that's being pushed along by energy, not of ourselves. And that is the exhausting motivation. That's exhausting. Inspiration is not exhausting. There's ever-ending energy with inspiration. And I prefer inspiration. But if I had a choice, that is what I'd prefer because it's sweet, it's delicious, it's uplifting, it's long burning. And what I'm coming to understand is that thoughts and actions that have been inspired are way more successful than me sitting in a think tank trying to work out what I'm going to do to be successful or what would be a successful action for me to take. Whereas an inspired action and you know, coming from my background, I'm really wanting to be inspired because I'm very tired from being pushed along by this energy of striving. And so there, I want to think, what's that saying? Think harder, work, help me here, Linda.
Work smarter, not harder.
That's the one. Work smarter, not harder, because I've had 2 burnouts in my life. So I'm not prepared to burn out anymore. And I'm so focused on my serenity that I would, you know, success just doesn't sort of make it anymore because it's exhausting to strive for any form of success on this world. And we are in between 2 energies on this planet. You know, there's the group of part of the collective that's, no, if it's going to be, it's up to me. You have to make it happen. You have to knock on doors. And I don't even have that within me anymore. I don't have that pushiness. It's not even a part of me anymore. And then there's the the awakened being aspect of, I'm in full faith. I trust my process. I trust my life. I trust my purpose, my destiny. It will happen, which brings me actually to a rune that I chose this morning. And now this rune is the reversed of the flow rune. I think, is it? Oh no, the movement rune, sorry, because we picked this last week. Movement, perfect. Progress, the horse, rune number 17, it was. So this is the reversed movement that appears to block. Be certain that what you are doing or not doing is timely. There are no missed opportunities. You have simply to recognize that not all opportunities are open to you, that not all possibilities are for you. The opportunity at hand may be priced precisely to avoid action. Do nothing. If you are feeling at a loss, unclear about the need to act, consider what is timely to your nature and remember, what is yours will come to you. So that is how I am practicing my life. And Jesus said, I can of my own self do nothing and everything gets done. And this is the Buddha's way. The universe acts and then we respond. Now, to live that way goes totally against 3D societal thinking, totally against it. However, that's the life that I've chosen to walk in. But it's not easy because of here. And it's not 24/7. It's just subtle. Occasionally it's subtle. There's doubt. Am I really on the right track here, or am I?
Am I crazy? Have I lost my mind?
What do you think about that philosophy of allowing the universe to move first and then you responding? There's a lot of downtime.
There can be a lot of downtime in it. I kind of have, you see, I've been very trained to think in a Buddhist way from very early on. And I've kind of taken both perspectives, and I believe that they need to be married. We have to take some action, and we have to wait for the universe at the same time. You know, there has to be some balance happening between, what we're putting out. There's this idea that if we just keep visualizing and keep seeing it and keep that, it will just naturally come to us. But there also requires a little bit of action on our part too, whether that's learning a new philosophy or maybe just following an inspired impulse to go to a coffee shop and you meet the right person, or like whatever that is, right? So it does require some initiating action to meet the universe at the same time, and one thing that I've really loved about living from a more inspired way is that not only is it you that gets inspired when you're full of it, full of inspiration, is it inspires other people. And this is such I'm not, don't have the right word, but it's like when you walk into a room and you have a smile on your face and you're feeling very inspired by your life, many people feel that too. And it can drive so many other people. It's like those waves that people can just pick up just by being in the same room with you. And that I really love about living a more inspired life. It's the same idea as like, I just have a feeling I want to call this person, and you call them up and they're like, oh my God, this is what's happening in my world today. And I'm so happy that you called and I get to share this with you. And it's like, oh my God, that's so wonderful. And now we're both inspired, and it's been this really nice unfolding of, building the panel for the vidcast. Sometimes I have a full week of meetings set up for this, and I show up for every single one. And sometimes other people don't show up. And it's like being inspired and being okay that person is not the right. And, some people would get really annoyed with that. Some people would be very like, it would ruin their day or like make them. But when you're living an inspired life, that person is probably just not on your frequency, and that's okay. Trust me, there's going to be many more that are. Like, we don't have to connect with everybody. We don't have to be okay with everybody, because our inspiration can't vibrate with everybody. And the more we're vibrating and the higher we're going in this inspired action, the more it becomes apparent who is on that frequency with you.
That's very true. And coming from your Libra sun, that balance is really important.
Okay.
And coming from my Capricorn black and white sun, that is we're all going to have different issues.
Absolutely.
Every person's going to have a different issue with how we should operate from inspiration to motivation. And just as an astrologer, I can go through the whole 12 signs and tell you exactly what their mode of operando is. And so that individual, that's their driving force. However, as an awakened being, you know, we were whole within, you know, so it's just a matter of balancing that inner part of our nature. And inspiration can inspire a whole room. That's right. I often say, did you get a heart check on what she just said? You know, did you feel that's a good idea? And if the whole room's like, yeah, you should do that, you know, that means everybody in the room's got a heart check. Other times I've asked somebody, do you think that's, oh no, I don't think she should be doing that. And I say, no, either. I'm not getting a heart. I don't feel that either. You know, so that person's actually in the fog. They're acting from fear, obligation, guilt. And you could also, you know, just as a situation that's previously happened with somebody we know who's doing a geographical, and you know, all of us know that that's not the right thing for her to be doing. However, our compassion's there that she will learn whatever she's going to learn on that journey. So she has not inspired us at all. She's very excited about, you know, her new plans. And you know, I don't even think you can express that to somebody without them feeling like, you know, you're poo-pooing on their parade, you know.
Well,
so
and the thing is, yeah, and the thing is it just maybe a different path for the two of you to go. You know what I'm saying? Like that inspiration that she's feeling, she may go in that direction and find all kinds of people who are living inspired in that direction. And your inspiration is on a different path. You know, there's always a reason why people are being inspired, even if it is driven by, you know, some kind of guilt or responsibility or trauma even. And, you know, every inspiration that we have, no matter what the driving force of it is doing what it's supposed to do, is teach us. And bring us closer to expending the energy that we've come here to put out into this physical world.
That's true, because you've reminded me of an inspired geographical that I did over 12 years ago, moved states, and I fully believed that was to connect back with my sisters. However, when I made that move, all hell broke loose with my sisters. And, you know, that eventually led on to my individuation from my family. So, but I know I was inspired to go and to move, but I was inspired to move to learn a very big lesson.
Yeah. And
have moved back. You know, have had to move back. So I had to move up there, learn the lesson, and then come back, which was interesting. Yes. So you've just reminded me that, yeah. So we can be inspired and motivated, because the motivation comes from the inspiration. The energy's there. I mean, wouldn't you love to just be an inspired novelist, inspired? I mean, they can't stop writing. The inspiration is churning within them as a very powerful, forceful energy that the words just have got to come out on paper. And I mean, I've had that inspiration creatively in my life. I
Absolutely.
have had that inspiration. And so I'm very aware when it's not there.
Mhm.
You could call it like a writer's block. But I guess there's an acceptance of our journey, and that now's not the time. There's other work being done, other processes happening.
Mhm. See, the thing that I've come to learn is that inspiration may not always live in the same outlet. What I mean by that is that, you know, I've seen some musicians and they write music their whole life. And I wish I was like that, but inspiration doesn't work like that for me. Right. So I can write music. I've written quite a few songs and I've painted quite a few pictures and drawn. Very good at all of this. I've written books. Been inspired to design rooms. I've done all kinds of different creative outlets. But what happens is I do a creative outlet and I have all of this energy and momentum with it. I get it out. Do whatever I'm going to do with it. And then the inspiration goes down and I find my next outlet. And this sometimes is very uncomfortable for people because they think that no, you're doing this, you need to do this, you need to put all of your focus on this. And so maybe there's like this lack of motivation to keep myself on that one thing. But what I've learned for myself and what works really good for me is to keep moving to the next thing that brings me inspiration and motivation to keep working on those projects. And eventually I come back to it again and I will continue to grow those original projects and I'll continue to have inspiration and bring them to the next level and do that. And then it goes to a different, inspired outlet that I have. Like I have so many of them that it's it's almost it would be sad and I would live in a very gloomy world if I didn't allow those things to come out in that way, you know? And I have to be okay with that. That's not the answer for everybody.
No, no. And the fact that you're okay with that, and to be an awakened being is to know thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Know thyself. And this is where we've gotten lost in society, is this doubt of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
How and so awakening is discovering the self. I'm not into the woke out there. I'm not talking about woke out there. We're talking about embodying the soul, owning ourselves,
Yep.
pulling the fragmented pieces back within
Mm-hmm.
to sit in that wholeness that we came into the world as.
Exactly.
So knowing our own inspiration, motivation, language,
Mm-hmm.
if we're not comparing ourselves to others,
That's right.
can become the easy path. It's when
Mm-hmm.
we're comparing ourselves to others. Like I see people pushing and pushing, and that used to be me. And there's still a part of me that goes, what happened to that part of me? I want that back. However, that part of me came with a whole bunch of issues
Right.
that were behind that motivation. And inspiration is quantum. There's no doubt about it. It's quantum inspiration, but motivation is something that we have the power over. So if there's no inspiration, we've got to pull the power from within us. When we're inspired, there seems to be this extra energy, a third energy that comes along to walk hand in hand with us. But when we've got to motivate ourselves, I mean, that's a common out. Yeah, here you want to go and do. No, I'm not motivated to do that. No, I'm not motivated to do that. No, I'm not motivated. And that's a good thing too, because we also need to know what we've got energy for. Like
right.
some social occasion, oh, I don't have energy for all that today. I don't have the energy for it. So, which goes back to our self-care. It's just a full package.
It really is.
It's a full package, but that inspired feeling is almost orgasmic when it's pure. When it's pure, it is exciting. It's fantastic. We haven't discussed here, and I haven't really. Well, there would only be meditation. I'm thinking out loud here. There would only be meditation that could push that inspiration along. I mean, where does that inspiration come from? Is it ethereal? Which I believe musicians receive
Absolutely.
inspired actions.
This is what I truly believe about music and creative processes is it's like it's in the waves of the planet. It's like it drops from the higher frequencies and it's in the waves, and there are certain people who are able to hear it or see it or feel it and can bring it to reality.
You're right.
You know, and that's the inspiration. But I'll tell you this story. So when I lost my Facebook at the beginning of September, when I knew for sure I was like deactivated, not getting it back. So one of the biggest ways that I built my business before on Facebook was doing readings, my rune readings, right? And I had not been doing them for about a year and a half because I was so busy in my business that I just didn't have time. And it kind of felt like I grew out of them. But it kept coming in, like, you got to do it. This is, one of the best ways for you to rebuild that community that you had. And so I was kind of resistant. And then one night I didn't even think about it. I came in my room, I pulled my runes and my cards, and I got online and I just did it. And I had a huge amount of people that showed up for those readings that day, and that still continue to show up for them now. And it's like, when you read A Course in Miracles, it talks about how when we can put our thinking aside and our analysis aside and just allow God into our heart, or God energy, or source energy, or maybe it's Buddha, or maybe it's Jesus, or whatever it is for you, it's that energy. It will guide you. It will just take over and do it. Like you won't be able to resist. Well, you could, I guess, if you really, had that much motivation to not do anything. But, it's the same idea as like when you're sitting with somebody and you're having a conversation and all of a sudden these things are flying out of your mouth and you're not even thinking about it. You don't even know where it comes from. But those words now created a miracle between you and that person is inspired now. And you feel that inspiration. And that's the God energy. That's the creative force. That's the source of everything.
Creative force. And I also have a story. When I was singing myself in a duo, I said to my guitarist one day, I said, I tell you what a good cover would be Pat Benatar, Hit Me With Your Best Shot. Oh, yeah, that'd be good. I went, yeah, and we both went, yeah, that'd be good, wouldn't it? Less than a year later, Britney Spears bought that out. She released Hit Me With Your Best Shot. I looked at him. That's when I saw and learned that all ideas are in the ether. And for us, we need to do whatever we have to do. In my case, it's stillness, to take on these ideas, I guess. But following our own path is important too. I'm very much have been given the message to follow my path with inspiration, motivation, and being exhausted because I'm a tired earth angel. I am really tired earth angel. I don't have that energy I had in my 20s and 30s to make something happen. I think what we're hitting on here is co-creation.
Right.
I think what we're really hitting on here is walking as awakened beings, is walking hand in hand with that part of ourselves, the creative part of ourselves, so that the inspiration, the message is received. In my case, I say, oh, I don't know how to do that. The inner child goes, oh, I don't know how to do that. And the creator says, it's okay. You don't have to do it. You are not alone to have to work it all out. Step by step, we'll get there together. And, you know, back 2013, back in then on the internet and Facebook, oh, co-creation, co-creation. And I think this is what it is, co-creation, is that inspired thought, owning the fact that you may not know the next step, hence the lack of motivation, but the trust.
Absolutely, definitely trusting those steps. And the other thing too that I think a lot of people miss out on when they're trying to manifest a certain kind of life for themselves is that you're right here and the dream life that you want is over here. And there's a bunch of learning and a bunch of things that you have to go through to be the person that walks in those shoes. And so there's a bunch of inspired paths that may look like, oh my God, that was the terrible choice. Like, what was I thinking? But ultimately, it was to get your mind, your physical mind, in the state to walk those shoes. And it's all by inspiration, you know? Like I can't tell you how many times I was like, oh my gosh, how did I spent a year of my life doing that one thing, another came after. But I look back and it's like, no, I always was working towards where I am now. Always. This was always the place that I was coming. And all of the things that I've had to do and all of the inspired choices or, you know, whatever they were, was always to get me here. Like my unseen support system and my higher self was always guiding me on those steps, bringing the wrong people what they were the right people, you know, making it look like, oh, that was the wrong decision, but it was the right decision. Like there was no mistakes.
There is no mistakes, is there?
There's no mistakes.
There's no mistakes. But I think our biggest enemy is other people's opinions. So we need to work to a place that we trust ourselves so much. When you're inspired, all of the naysayers, oh yeah, I'm inspired, out of my way. But when we're motivating ourselves to go a certain path, it's other people's opinions, because we're working from our own power. It's other people's opinions that can halt us.
Absolutely.
On the way. So, you know, part of being an awakened being is that 100% trust in self and your guide, whoever that is, God, higher self, oversoul, whatever, you know, is personal to yourself.
Absolutely.
So really leave everybody's opinion behind us, whether we make mistakes or not. But they're not really mistakes, are they? Because they're learning lessons along the way.
That's right. That's right. And when you can really start to embrace that and embrace the process, it helps so much to just trust that much deeper. The impulses, the triggers, the little voices that say, remember that, and this, it feels the same. Maybe we need to, you know, like just those little awarenesses that we gain through going through all of those experiences then become your inspiration / motivation to be able to keep moving on your path, keep moving closer to your higher self, moving inward more and making your focus upwards instead of outwards.
Exactly. And I was just about to say that motivation doesn't necessarily have to mean doing an action. Like you could be inspired today, viewers, by what we're speaking about. And the motivation may be thought motivation or a feeling motivation, or rather than an action. I mean, this is bigger than that, what we're discussing today. Yeah, so inspired. I keep going back to that militant, the militant upbringing. I mean, that's a hard one to crack, because that is thought patterning. So I'm very inspired to let that go, obviously, and
But
to
you also,
question that, to question.
yeah, absolutely. And you also have to allow yourself to understand that that militant, programming that you have from such a young age serves a benefit in whichever way that looks like, that mirrors, inspiration, motivation coming together for you. Like, I know that right now it's probably maybe speaking a little too loud, or it's not saying the right words to give you that, inspiration that you wish that little voice did, instead of, why aren't you doing this? And why isn't it happening like that? And what's, like, or come on now, we got breakfast, we got this to do, we got that to do. But I bet you any money, when it comes to planning an event or doing something that, like, you would be the best one, because you're going to be able to look at all the details and make sure it runs exactly smoothly the way it's supposed to.
That's exactly right. The example I thought about is, we've got lots of floods going on over here in Australia. If there was a flood in my local town, well, I'd be there with this emergency services rescuing people, because that also fits with that militant upbringing, but in saying that militant, it's there. It's not so loud now, because we do need to work on that. From in the circles from ACA, the work that I did there, that militant voice is a critical parent. So when we can connect with our inner child and be aware that voice was the critical parent, it's just a matter of soothing and communication between the two of them. I love that it can work as a positive as well. It's not loud enough to traumatize me anymore. However, it's still there. I'm aware that it's there, and it's only when I speak to it, and the loving parent speaks to the inner child, that when I am relaxing, I can relax. A lot of traumatized children can't relax because that voice is so loud. Or even before they've even done the work, they can't even hear that voice. They think that's their voice. Yeah. They think that's the truth, is that voice that's trying to motivate a person. I think it's actually trying to kill a person, because there's so many orders on board. It's quite it's the part of us that we need to integrate in a healthy manner. And I know a lot of people out there have got that militant voice trying to motivate them every day. However, in that case, that's when the inspirational voice needs more work, that pushing into our higher self, that feeling the soothe and the love from the loving higher frequencies of ourselves. And that is the work, isn't it? That is the work that us humans that we face when we awaken. That is part of the process, the cleanup, part of the cleanup.
I'll tell you the something that's coming into my mind too is patience, right? Because there's always the right time. There's always that time when everything lines up. And sometimes we get, well, I find for me now, this is where my which I don't feel has any bearing on me at all today, but I had a really struggle with this, was if I don't do it now, there's something wrong with me. right? So I always had this little voice like, you're lazy, what's wrong with you? You're not worthy, like all of these, you know, voices that's what my voices were. And when I really recognized that if I just have patience with myself, if I just, I put the question out there, I need to learn how to do this. Existence, I need to learn how to do this. And I have patience, and in no time, the answer comes.
Mm.
If we're striving and we're trying to, you know, in kind of like an unhealthy, motivated way to learn it, it's a struggle. It's
Mm.
hard. There's a lot of hardships that can come in that. But if we are patient and trust that inspiration is coming, the answer will come. It's either you'll attract somebody, or somebody will mention a book to you, or somebody will have, just it'll just come pouring out. But it comes, or sometimes it doesn't come from the outside, it comes from the inside. One of the practices that I started doing was, visualizing your parent standing in front of you and recognizing where their energy of certain things that that you've taken on from your parents, where does it come into your body, and then bringing divine energy to dissolve that connection and allow it to come into your heart and hear the inspired thinking that comes with it, so that you can know some of the lessons that come with that energy connection between the two of you. I mean, your parents are your parents because you're here to learn from their energy. The whole goal is for you to be more advanced than your parents were. That's the whole goal, right? So, of course, you need to have that in energy imprint in order to absorb, learn, and advance from it, right? So when we can start to dissolve those connections and allow that divine energy in and ask, what is the lesson for me? What did my mom not learn that I can learn? And asking inspired questions like that. And the energy will teach you, the energy will show you. As long as you have that open mind, it's all there. It'll start pouring out of you, you know?
That's beautiful. And what comes to mind is nature too. Nature,
Mm.
sitting in the stillness, it's a higher frequency. So you're going to be connecting, you're going to be raising your vibrational frequency by sitting in nature. And meditation, if we can give any antidotes here in our talk today, meditation, sitting in nature, allowing to yourself to receive with patience, allowing the time and the space that it's going to take for the inspiration to come forth, and acceptance. Those two, allowing and also accepting the time that it will take.
Exactly.
We'd all love to have a Harry Potter book come out of us, but it's not everybody's path as well. And I get a little frustrated with coaching groups. I mean, I signed up for a very expensive coaching organization last year. And basically, he was saying that you all can have what I've got. And it just, something didn't sit right with me, because his destiny is not the 5,000 people that he's attracted. His talk has attracted that. The money that he's earned has attracted that. However, it may not be in everybody's destiny to have millions and millions of dollars. So I get a little, I'd love to know any comments from others on this, because I really don't think we're all cut out of the same cookie cutter. I really don't. And we can't fool ourselves and be led on by charlatans saying that we can, because it's very confusing, and it allows a space for that critical voice to put us down if we don't have the same inspiration as him.
I totally agree with you on that. It's that comparison, right? That can really throw us off. And we're really brought up with the comparison program, like right from school. Like, well, school is really bad. I mean, but if you grew up in a home with a lot of brothers and sisters, you've probably been programmed like that too. But school is really bad to program you to compare you to the next person, compare your development, your creativity, your smarts. Are you English smart? Are you math smart? Are you, and if you're not any of those, then you're not smart. Like, that is just terrible thinking. Like, every single person on this planet is a very wise person if they are brought up in an environment that teaches them that they're wise, or if they choose to engage in environments that teach them that they're wise. Everybody has the potential to bring their full energy forward to the collective, every single person. And everybody here has a different way of doing that. One person can't know everything. It's not how it's meant to be. It's not supposed to be that way. You have a piece of the puzzle. I have a piece of the puzzle. We all have a piece of the puzzle, and we're all equal in that. There's nobody ahead or behind, even though it may look that way. So yeah.
That's right. That comparison from it starts it starts in the family, doesn't it? Why can't you go out and play footy every afternoon? Get out of the bedroom reading books. Why can't you be like your brother? Why aren't you top of the class? And even being compared at school, some families are very strict about studying, what have you. And they're top of the class because they have to go home and study for 2 to 3 hours. We have that in Australia. Our top students are usually immigrants, and then their parents really want to make it here in Australia. There's this big push of energy and striving and, and what have you. And it just brings us back to the acceptance of the self, knowing the self, knowing what is inspired and what is me making up that thought from another energy source, whether it's lack, low self-esteem. Becoming awakened is not an overnight success. It's a journey. It's a journey within, and from that journey will come understanding and ease, because we're dealing with ourselves. So it's all inner conflict. Yeah. It's all conflict within. So if we can work through these conflicts and make peace with ourselves, the inspiration has a place to land. When there's too much junk going on inside, too much chaos inside, trauma, there's no place for inspiration.
So that reminds me of a Buddhist parable that I learned a long time ago. Was this man traveled for days and days and got to the Buddhist monk up in his tower. And when he came in to speak to the Buddhist monk, he had all these questions, and the Buddhist monk said, "Let's drink tea first." And so he said, okay. So he sat, and then as the Buddhist monk was pouring the tea into the teacup filled up, and then it started spilling all over the place. And the man was like, why are you doing this? What is going on? And then the Buddhist monk slapped him in the forehead and said, if your cup is full, you cannot receive anything.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. And it's true, which brings us back to that stillness, that meditation, that making space for inspired thought, and the patience to go with that. And our heart's desire, we all have heart's desires. So pretty much if they're true heart's desires, they're in alignment with the path that we chose before incarnating, our purpose in life. So everybody's running out there looking for their purpose. What's my purpose? What's my purpose? I believe it's initially to sit and be still and know thyself is your initial purpose. And from
And
there,
that's a journey. Yeah, that's a journey on its own to learn how to sit with yourself and learn how to hear and how to, like that's a journey. Like I watch my daughter, she's 11, and just watching her, like the 11, the 1 is like mirroring and like, who is she going to take influence from and who is she going to, it's like this really big discernment that she's really developed this year of like who's she giving energy to and who's giving her energy, and what does that look like and what's she going to put up with and what's she not going to put up with, like that's all a journey, like
what a beautiful 11, because that is all of our paths.
yeah.
If you listen to any channelers out there and many of the awakened beings who have been on this path for decades, that is the message. That is the message. Where are you putting your energy? Where are you motivated to put your energy? And is it coming from fog? Is it coming from the fog? And if it is coming from the fog, fear, obligation, or guilt, then this is where we get to learn more about ourselves and sit in our own energy. I've just recently done it myself. I had given my energy to a group of people and whoa, I've had to step back this year. And it feels so good to be back in my own energy. And if anything, it was the obligation that was raising its raising up in me, where I was making choices through obligation when I didn't want to do something. Therefore, I was adding my energy to experiences that I didn't really want to be a part of, but I was in the fog. I couldn't see it.
The obligation part.
Yeah, I couldn't see the obligation part. In hindsight, I subtly felt it. But then this new energy this year has woken me up to that. And so I've had to step right back these last couple of weeks and get back into my own energy. I've lost kilos because they used to eat out a lot and pub food. And, I'm back in my own energy, lost weight. Oh, I feel amazing in my own energy. I feel fabulous. I'm really comfortable in my own energy. So, and I'm inspired. I'm actually inspired to make 3 videos a week and to keep, walking this path that I feared last year, but pushed through with, like your example of having to motivate yourself through the fear, feel the fear and do it anyway, which is only going to allow for more inspiration.
That's right.
I've got the space. I'm making the space. I'm not following other people's paths, because I think that's what I was doing. Not that they were even on a spiritual path, but they were on a social path. They were on a social path, and I was following that energy to feel a part of, I guess, which I needed last year. That whole experience has grown me.
Yeah. So last year, the energy was all about community, connecting to community. And I think everybody had a very unique experience around what community is and how to interact with it. And there's a lot of learning about that last year. And now we're stepping into a number 7. So collectively, it's about going inwards. It's about finding deeper secrets this year. It's about us. So that's going to be a huge shift, going from outwards last year to very inwards this year.
It's beautiful. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
The last series of year 7s, I flew off to India, where it is very slow pace, and it's sitting, drinking tea and talking and philosophizing and visiting temples and just chilling out, doing nothing. This year, I was inspired. I went on a camping couple of days with 2 friends, and I was sitting there in the night, and I was intuitively inspired. Spirit said to me, higher self said, I want you to go camping this year on your own. I thought, I mean, I've lived on my own all my life, but to go camping on your own? Look at me, I'm frozen.
You've frozen every time at the perfect like expressions
Oh, that's
every single
hilarious.
time.
That's my acting school. See, I used to be on stage. So if you find me there I am. If you find me very theatrical, it's because I am.
I love it.
Anyway, so I've booked out my diary every month, every 4 weeks to go camping with myself. That was an inspired thought. I'm motivated. I went and bought all the gear, so I'm fully self-sufficient. And I'm excited. I'm not scared or nervous if I made that idea up. Like if I made that idea up, I would be very scared of that. But because it was inspired by higher self, it's like, wow, that's different to go camping on my own. Like some people may look at that and go, yeah, what's wrong with that? But, you know, one of my fears is being alone. You know, when I went back through the past lives with that hypnotherapy that's all the rage, every life I was alone. So part of this life is me coming to terms with being alone and on my own, so to speak, just as me. So that's happening in a week and a bit, that I'm going camping on my own for a couple of nights. So, but it was inspired. It came in the night. It was inspired. I got cheap camping gear. It's flowing, and that's how I want life to be. See, that's why I'm so attracted to the inspiration, because it flows. When we make up an idea or somebody suggests an idea and it's not an inspired motivation, then it doesn't work. There seems to be wall after wall after wall. Whereas when we have inspired action, you just breeze through, synchronicity is activated, and this comes and that comes. And
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for joining me again. I love our conversation so much. They're so inspiring.
They are inspiring. They are.
Do you have any announcements? Do you have anything coming up?
No, but I'm inspired, and it will take a little motivation, like you explained, a little of a self-push. But because I've got that distraction out of the way, see, that was a distraction. That was stopping me from being on my path. So that giving my energy over to a group, you know, just one. I've got my feelers out there in the community all over, but just one group wasn't serving me for my path. Nothing ugly happened or anything like that. So my, you know, I'll be making my 3 videos, if not more videos, because this is my path. This is my purpose, to share, like yourself, our journey, because, you know, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, they're awakening. And the beginning of the journey, there's lots of things that we need to learn and come to understand about ourselves. So that's what I'll be doing this year. And we've got another talk coming up, which I'm looking forward to already.
I know. I'm really excited about it. It's judgment/criticism versus discernment. So discernment is this really powerful tool that we're going to just spend an hour talking about the next time. And that's going to be on February 17th, my time, 16th, my time, and 17th, your time.
Yes, for sure. So that'll be really good. You know, we need to nut out this word judgment, because it's it's biblical. So, you know, it's come from religion. And judge. No, well, judging is quite important. So we'll leave you with that. It's very important to judge.
There's a fine line between judgment and discernment, and so it's just kind of defining what that is. I have an inner child course, level 1, starting at the beginning of February. So I'm really excited about getting started on that. I just finished level 1 with the group. It went really, really, really well. And I'm just so excited. There's this new teaching style that I've taken on, and I think it just really fits so well with everybody's learning style. And so I'm really excited about it.
And I've actually opened up for consultations this year. So I'm doing an hour and a half Zoom consultations, and need your birth details, basically looking at Pluto's transit into Aquarius and how that affects you, because this will be your dark night of the soul if you're having challenging aspects to your natal sun or moon or Venus or Mars via Pluto. So my email will be in the description box, and that's all you need is my email, and we can have a chat over email, and I can give you the details from there. But I thank Linda for having me. It's always beautiful.
It is, yes, a very beautiful conversation. And I thank you as well for joining me. And thank you everybody for listening. If you feel connected to this conversation, there's many more of them happening on this Awakened Beings channel. Just hit the subscribe button and you will get notification, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.